Welcome to my channel, USA Battle Zone. Today's story will take you deep into the heart of America's forgotten war. Not one fought overseas, but one raging quietly in the desert plains of the Southwest. It's a story about courage, loss, and what happens when evil crosses the wrong man. The sun was sinking low over the Texas-Mexico border, painting the sky in crimson and gold. A gentle wind brushed across a lonely stretch of farmland, rustling the corn stalks and whispering through the fences. From a distance, it looked like any other quiet American homestead: acres of dry land, a small farmhouse, a rusted barn, and a man sitting silently on his porch, a cup of black coffee cooling beside him. That man's name was Jack Dalton. To the few people who still knew him, Jack was just a weathered old veteran who liked to keep to himself. He grew corn, fixed his own truck, and never bothered a soul. But beneath the calm exterior and gray beard was a history soaked in blood and shadow. Jack Dalton was not just any soldier, he was the most decorated Delta Force commander in U.S. history. He had led missions that the government would never admit existed. He'd fought in the darkest corners of the world, from the mountains of Afghanistan to the jungles of South America. He'd lost brothers, seen evil up close, and carried the weight of every life he couldn't save. When he retired, he disappeared, choosing peace over glory, silence over war. But war, it always finds its way back. That night, under a new moon, several trucks rolled across the border. Heavily armed men, members of one of Mexico's most violent cartels, were headed north. They'd been expanding operations, looking for remote land to stash drugs and weapons. And Jack's farm, quiet and isolated, seemed perfect. They didn't know whose land they were stepping on. Around midnight, Jack woke to the sound of tires crunching gravel. His instincts kicked in instantly, the kind that don't fade even after years of retirement. He reached under his bed and pulled out a locked case. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was his old M1911 pistol and a combat knife with his name engraved on the handle. Through the window, he saw headlights, 6 trucks, at least a dozen men. They were laughing, armed to the teeth. One of them fired a rifle into the air just for fun. Jack's heart was calm, his breathing steady. He'd been here before. He turned off the lights, moved quietly through the shadows, and flipped a hidden switch under the table. The power to the barn and outer lights went dead. He'd wired that system years ago. Old habits die hard. The cartel men approached the farmhouse, shouting in Spanish, "This is our land now. Come out, viejo, and you live." Jack didn't move. One of them kicked the door open. They stormed in, weapons raised, flashlights sweeping across the living room. The room was empty, but as the first man stepped further inside, the floor creaked. From behind the door came a low whisper, "Wrong house." The man didn't even have time to turn before the knife slit his throat clean. The body dropped silently. Panic spread. The others shouted, firing blindly. But Jack was already gone, melting into the darkness like a ghost. Outside, the wind carried the echo of gunfire. Dogs barked in the distance. The cartel thought they were fighting a farmer. They didn't know they'd just declared war on a one-man army. Jack moved through the fields, memory guiding every step. He'd set up defensive points long ago, tripwires, choke spots, escape routes. He never really stopped being a soldier, he'd just changed battlefields. 2 men circled toward the barn. Jack waited until they entered before tossing a small flashbang through the side window. The explosion lit up the night, followed by screams. Before they could recover, Jack was on them, moving with the precision of decades of training. 2 shots, 2 bodies. Clean, silent, efficient. By now, the cartel realized something was wrong. This wasn't some scared old man hiding in his house, this was a predator. Their leader, a man called Santos, barked orders in fury. "Find him. Burn the place if you have to." They lit torches, setting fire to Jack's crops, trying to flush him out. The sky glowed orange, smoke rising like a signal to heaven. From the tree line, Jack watched his life's work burn, years of peace going up in flames. But his face stayed calm. He whispered softly, "You shouldn't have done that." He slung his old M4 from the shed wall, a relic of his service days, still clean and oiled. The night turned red. One by one, the cartel men fell. Jack used every shadow, every piece of terrain. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and yet, they never stood a chance. He hit them fast, disappeared, then struck again. His old Delta instincts took over: discipline, timing, precision. But even warriors bleed. A stray bullet grazed his arm, another nicked his side. He felt the old pain, not just physical, but emotional. The faces of fallen brothers flickered in his mind. The things he'd buried deep came rushing back. Still, he kept fighting. By dawn, the farm was a graveyard. The fire had burned out, leaving smoke curling into the pale sky. The last surviving cartel soldier crawled through the dirt, begging for mercy. Jack stood over him, blood on his hands, chest rising and falling. He looked down at the man, barely 20, scared, shaking. For a long moment, Jack said nothing. Then he lowered his weapon. "Go home," he said quietly. "Tell your people what you saw. Tell them this land isn't for taking." The boy nodded frantically and stumbled away. Jack watched him disappear into the desert haze. And then, for the first time in years, he dropped to his knees. The weight of it all, the loss, the violence, the endless fight, came crashing down. His farm was gone. His peace was gone. But he was alive. He looked at the rising sun, whispering to the ghosts of his past, "You can rest now, brothers. It's over." Days later, the story spread across the border. Rumors of an American ghost who wiped out an entire cartel crew. Locals called him El Fantasma del Desierto, the ghost of the desert. Law enforcement arrived to investigate but found little, just bullet casings, burned fields, and a flag folded neatly on the porch. Jack was nowhere to be found. Some say he moved deeper into the desert, rebuilding somewhere no one could find him. Others say he finally went to see the families of his fallen brothers, one last mission, one last promise kept. But those who know the life of a soldier understand something deeper. Men like Jack Dalton never truly stop fighting. They just trade one battlefield for another. Weeks later, a lone pickup truck pulled into a small veterans cemetery outside Amarillo. The man who stepped out wore a faded jacket, a bandaged arm, and a calm, tired smile. He placed a metal tag on a grave that read Captain Ryan Hale, Delta Force. Jack whispered, "We made it, brother. I finally came home." He stood there for a long while, the wind brushing against his face, carrying the scent of dust and distant rain. As he walked back to his truck, he looked out at the horizon, endless, open, and free. The land he'd fought for. The country he loved. And though no one else was there to hear it, his voice broke softly through the quiet. "Some wars never end. But at least now, I'm fighting for peace." The truck rolled down the dirt road, sunlight gleaming off the hood, vanishing into the desert. And somewhere out there, in the wide-open American plains, the legend of Jack Dalton, the deadliest Delta Force commander in history, lives on.